The next Austro-Turkish War began, oddly enough, from the conflict between the Prince of Transylvania and the Polish king. The fact is that the Transylvanian Prince Georgi II Rákóczi, although he was a vassal of the Ottoman Sultan, dreamed of getting the Polish crown, which, of course, the current Polish king did not agree with. Georgi was an ambitious man and did not want to give up his plans. Since the Transylvanian prince clearly did not have enough of his own forces to achieve his goals, he agreed on help with hetman of the Zaporizhian host Bogdan Khmelnytsky, as well as the princes of Wallachia and Moldova. There were not enough forces for the war with the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, but when the Transylvanian prince managed to agree on a joint attack with the Swedish King Charles X Gustav, he decided to act immediately. In 1657, Georgi, together with his allies, invaded the territory of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. From the very beginning, the Transylvanian prince was lucky, and after uniting with the army of Charles X, he ravaged the enemy's territory without encountering serious resistance. In turn, the Poles, not possessing sufficient forces to defeat the enemy army, invaded the territory of Transylvania and blunted its destruction. Time passed and the affairs of the Polish king became worse and worse, as he clearly lacked the strength to resist the enemies on his territory. The Transylvanian prince and the Swedish king had already planned how exactly they would divide the territory of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, but they failed to realize these plans. The fact is that in the summer of 1657, the Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire Leopold I, as well as the Danish King Frederick III, entered the war against Sweden. The territory of the Kingdom of Sweden was under the threat of invasion and Charles X had to hastily transfer his army to the north. In turn, Georgi II, left without a powerful ally, decided to retreat to Transylvania. Taking advantage of a favorable set of circumstances, the Polish-Lithuanian army began to pursue the retreating enemy. In the Battle of Majorov, the Transylvanian prince suffered a crushing defeat and was later forced to capitulate, renouncing his claims to the Polish throne and promising to pay a huge indemnity. The problems of Georgi II did not end there. The fact is that the Ottoman Sultan, having learned that his vassal had started a war without permission, was seriously angry. In November 1657, under pressure from the Ottoman Sultan, the Transylvanian aristocracy deposed Georgi and chose Akash Barchai as the new prince. However, Georgi did not plan to give up. He gathered his supporters and began an armed struggle for power. The civil war in the Transylvanian Principality continued until August 1659, when Georgi was able to regain the Transylvanian crown. This turn of events did not suit the Ottoman Sultan, who declared Akash Barchai the legitimate prince of Transylvania, after which he began a punitive campaign against Georgi II. In May 1660, the Transylvanian army was defeated, and Georgi himself, having been wounded in battle, died in June 1660. He managed to appoint János Kemeny as his heir, who, realizing that he could not resist the Ottoman army on his own, hastily headed to Vienna in the hope of supporting the Austrians. In turn, the Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I, observing the situation, feared that the Ottoman Empire would annex the Transylvanian Principality and therefore hastily sent a small army led by Raimondo Montecuccoli to Transylvania. At this time, the Croatian Ban Miklos Zrinji tried with all his might to provoke a new war between Austria and the Ottoman Empire. He, starting from 1661, began to make raids deep into the Ottoman territory, plundering and ruining everything in his path. It is clear that the Sultan did not like the daring raids of Miklos Zrinji, as well as the presence of the Austrian army in Transylvania. Very soon, his patience snapped, and he moved on to action. In the summer of 1663, Grand Vizier Fazıl Ahmed Pasha Köprülü, at the head of an army of about 100,000 soldiers, invaded the territory of the Austrian part of Hungary. Having not met serious resistance on the way, already in September 1663, the Ottoman army captured the city of Neuhausen. Since at that time only the 12,000-strong Austrian army under the command of Montecuccoli and the 15,000-strong Hungarian-Croatian army under the command of Miklos Zrinji were in Transylvania, the Austrians were clearly not strong enough to stop the advance of the Ottomans. To rectify the situation, Leopold I was to turn to the German and European monarchs for help, and they, despite the differences, agreed to help. A 30,000-strong army of Bavarians, Brandenburgers, and Saxons was assembled, and the French king agreed to send a 6,000-strong corps under the command of Jean de Coligny-Savigny. It was decided to divide all the forces gathered to fight the Ottomans into 3 corps. Miklos Zrinyi, at the head of a 17,000th army, was to act in a southerly direction. An army under the command of General Jean-Louis Redouis de Souchet was to operate in the northern direction, and it was planned to use a 28,000-strong army under the command of Montecuccoli to conduct combat operations in the center. The remaining forces, totaling about 12,000 soldiers, are planned to be used as a reserve, as well as for the defense of the main fortresses. The main problem of the Austrians was the lack of a unified command, so all 3 armies acted independently of each other. Miklos Zrinyi decided not to wait for the Ottomans to attack, and he himself began to take action. He invaded the territory of the Ottoman Empire and some time later reached the outskirts of the city of Nagykanizsa. Since the city was well defended, Zrinji's army began siege work. The siege of the city progressed rather slowly, and after a month and a half from its beginning, Zrinji received the news that the Ottoman army, led by the Grand Vizier, was coming to the aid of the besieged city. Realizing that on the side of the enemy, the numerical superiority of Zrinyi lifted the siege and hastily retreated to his castle of Novi Zrin. In turn, the Ottomans began to pursue the retreating enemy. Very soon they reached the vicinity of the castle of Novi Zrin and began to besiege it. Zrinyi counted on the help of the main imperial army, but its commander, Montecuccoli, had other plans. In the end, Novi Zrin fell into the hands of the Ottomans, after which the Grand Vizier began to move towards the Austrian capital. Meanwhile, Montecuccoli took up defensive positions on the banks of the Raba River in order to block the path of the Ottomans and prevent them from reaching the outskirts of Vienna. On August 1, 1664, the Ottoman army appeared near the Raba River and began preparations for the crossing. The Austrians were ready to meet the enemy. Their plan was extremely simple and therefore no one doubted their success. Montecuccoli planned to wait for the Ottomans to begin the crossing, after which, by attacking the enemy with all his might, inflict tangible losses on him and thereby force him to abandon his plans to march on Vienna. When the vanguard of the Ottoman army crossed to the opposite bank of the river, he immediately got hit by massive artillery fire. At the same time, the Austrian army launched an attack. At the initial stage, everything was in favor of the Austrians, and the Ottomans, under their onslaught, began to move back to the river bank. But as more and more Ottoman troops crossed the river, the main problem of the Austrian army, which was the lack of a unified command, became more obvious. The Austrian commanders acted independently of each other, which is why the Ottomans managed to push their troops back from the river bank and continue the crossing. The scales leaned in favor of the Ottomans, and they could have won a decisive victory if not for Montecuccoli. Realizing that the situation was becoming critical, he managed to convince Coligny, who commanded the French corps, and the Margrave of Baden, who commanded the imperial detachments, to transfer command of all forces to him. While Montecuccoli was solving issues with one-man command in his army, the Ottoman army continued to cross, planning to go on the offensive soon. At this time, the Austrian army again attacked the Ottomans, who were not ready for defense, as they believed that they had already put the enemy troops to flight. This time the Austrian army acted as a single unit. The rapid blow of the Austrian detachments caught the Ottomans by surprise, because of which their defense was soon broken. After a short fight, the Ottomans, taken by surprise, tried to hastily cross to their shore. Many of them died by drowning in the river. It should be mentioned that the Grand Vizier had at his disposal a sufficient number of combat-ready detachments to try to continue the battle, but the flight of the vanguard broke the morale of the army, so he decided to retreat. Luck was on the side of the Austrians, as they, having defeated the Ottoman army, got the opportunity to launch an offensive deep into Ottoman territory, but it turned out differently. The fact is that the French king, although he helped the Austrians in the fight against the Ottoman Empire, at the same time planned to attack the Netherlands belonging to the Habsburgs. Since Leopold I did not have the strength for a war on 2 fronts, he was forced to hastily make peace with the Ottomans. Already on August 10, 1664, the Warsaw Peace was concluded, under the terms of which the war was stopped, and Transylvania remained in vassal dependence on the Sultan, but the Ottomans had to withdraw their troops from the principality. The Austrians, on the other hand, received land, control over which they managed to establish during the hostilities. This ended the war. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click on the bell so as not to miss new videos.